Viva Las Vegas, this is Sin City Mad Baker from fabulous Las Vegas, Nevada, and today I'm going to show you how to make 3D fondant cake topper numbers. From time to time you'll need to make them for cakes. Recently I made a 75th birthday cake for someone and I could not find letters anywhere, and the little wax candles just won't do. So I'll show you a quick peep at what one looks like. It actually has like a little popsicle stick and it's covered in fondant. It's nice and clean. The back's covered as well. You can decorate these further. You can emboss them, but they really look nice. You could even paint them, like if you use a white fondant, you can paint them gold or silver and that would be a nice effect. But they really look nice, much better than the little birthday number candles. So I'm going to move the camera so you can see my hands, and I'll show you really quickly how to make it. But before I do that, you're going to need an X-Acto blade or a craft knife. You can get the little wooden numbers from any craft store. I got these just from my local craft store. You'll want to glue the popsicle stick on with a non-toxic glue. Anytime you're working with food, you want to use non-toxic. So when you glue your popsicle stick on, if you can, let it sit overnight, at least an hour, so that it's very dry. But ideally you want to leave it overnight. And you want just a little bit of piping gel, because what you're going to do is you're going to paint the entire surface with piping gel, and that's how your fondant's going to stick onto your letter. So let's get started. I'm going to move the camera so you can see my hands. And because I like to use, embossers a whole lot, I'm going to emboss the surface of this really quickly. Hopefully I haven't let the fondant sit out too long. There we go. We're going to emboss that. And then what I'm going to do is take the embossed piece and flip it over, because what you want is you want the embossed pattern to show on the front. So I'm going to cut the fondant. I'm going to leave like maybe 1/4 of an inch overhang, because this is a 3D letter. You want to be able to cover the entire number. So I'm just going to trim around the number very nicely, again leaving 1/4 of an inch. And you do that for the top and the bottom. I mean, this is really simple, and it really makes a nice effect. I mean, you can also add things like flowers. If you got creative enough, you could probably pipe a name or something on it if you want it. Possibilities are endless. Just be careful though when you're using the X-Acto blade, and definitely want to be careful because this is really sharp. You don't want to cut yourself. Okay, so almost have the top portion of the number cut out. I'll get these extra little scraps out of the way here. And with the popsicle stick being in the way, you just want to cut that little excess off, since you can't cut through the stick. Okay, so we have that part done, and I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing for the back. I'll flip it over and go ahead and trim. Maybe I might use it this way. I think that's a little wider. Yeah. Maybe not. Maybe it's better this way. This actually, which brings up an interesting point. You don't really need to leave the overhang for the back, because the back side of the numbers, they're flat. So the front of the number, you'll have the overhang. So this is perfect. You can cut this really flush to the number, because it's going to just adhere to the back of it. Alright, almost done. These are really easy to make. Okay, there we go. And I'll cut that little edge off, and I hope you can see okay. Let's see, I'm gonna just check it and once again make sure it lines up. I have a little piece I can trim off here. Okay. Cut that little piece off right there. Okay, that should be good enough. Move my little scraps out the way. And very quickly, I'm going to paint the surface of the number with piping gel. You know, don't put too much, but make sure you cover the entire surface so you don't end up with like little bubbles. And get in the little cracks and stuff like that. Almost have my entire number covered. Get the little side so that the fondant sticks down really good. Okay, so now what I'll do is I'll just place my little piece of fondant on top. You want to line it up really good and work quickly because the fondant is drying out very fast. So there you go. Make sure I stay in the camera. It's like hard for me to get used to this whole camera thing here. So hope you can see it okay. But I'm just pressing the fondant around the edge here. You know, making sure that it's nice and clean. And if you have to press the fondant over a little bit more, just make sure you get it all the way to the edge. Let me see if I can get that in the camera. Get it all the way to the edge so it's nice and clean. And you know, keep a paper towel by in case you have to wipe some of the excess piping gel off. But it's coming along really nicely. The cool thing about fondant is it does, you know, stretch a little, so you know, in case you cut it a little short, just work with it with your fingers. Now ideally what you would want to do is just let this sit for a minute, and then you can go over it with your X-Acto blade and trim the edges off. But since, you know, I'm making this video, I'm going to go ahead and do it now so that you can see what I'm doing. But see how on the back you have the little pieces that stick up? I'm just going to go around the back side and trim that off with my X-Acto blade. And then also just checking to make sure that my fondant comes all the way over to the edge. And if you need to mash it a little bit, go right ahead. There we go. So I mean, this really makes a nice impression if it's done cleanly. There we go. Just trimming that up. Be careful not to get too much piping gel because that stuff gets real sticky. I hate working with it for that reason. I hate getting sticky stuff on my hands. Okay, so just about cleaned up here all the little pieces that are sticking up. And you definitely want it pretty smooth because the back side won't adhere if it's not. Okay, let me get this little corner here and then we'll put the other piece on. Okay, almost done, almost done. Oh, and I see a piece where I didn't push the fondant up far enough. But once again, just mash that down. And you don't really have to worry about the bottom because when you push it into the cake, you're not going to really see that part anyway. So there we go. And now I want to do the same thing to the back side. I want to go ahead and paint it with some piping gel. not too much. I keep it thin enough. Hope everybody had a nice Valentine's Day. I did. Went to a really nice restaurant here in Vegas. Had sushi with my husband. It was pretty cool. Okay, and there's one other little piece. But again, it's at the bottom, so it won't really make a difference because it's going to be stuck in the cake. And also make sure you put piping gel on the popsicle stick too. And I'm going to flip this over and notice how it doesn't have the overhang, but since that popsicle stick is there, you want to push your fondant down so it meets up to the edge. And try not to let your fondant dry out, because if you need to mash it a little bit, it'll meet up. There we go. It's coming together nicely. Mashing it down best I can. And then, like I said before, you know, ideally you want to let it sit a little bit, and you know, then you can trim the excess fondant. Let it sit only after you've got the moist fondant how you want it. I mean, make sure the edges are, you know, meet up pretty good before you start trimming. Did I say that right? Make sure the edges meet up before you let it dry. And then when it dries, you can go back with your craft knife and cut off any excess fondant. I think this looks pretty good. I just have a couple spots that, you know, could use some TLC, but I think you got pretty good. And then, you know, working with it, closing out the little gaps. I mean, but this is a nice 3D look. I have a corner here that I want to cut off. And just shape it up with your hand. You know, anything you don't like about it. Soften the corners a little bit if you have a pointy spot. But pretty much this is it. I mean, really quickly, I covered a number. I know it's going to be backwards the way you see it, but I embossed it. I covered it in fondant. I covered the back of it too. I mean, it looks really nice. It's going to look cool on a cake. But I hope it's something that you can use. Let me know what you think about the video. Oh, and also one other thing I meant to say. You want to leave, you know, maybe a couple inches on the stick. You don't want to make it so short that the number falls over when you stick it in the cake. And you can also do this for letters too. You know, that'd be great for a wedding where you're just using like initials or something like that. But this is it. This is Sin City Mad Baker from fabulous Las Vegas, Nevada, and I hope you'll come back and see me again. Thank you.